I have a mantra that I've been using for years to keep me on track when I get distracted. And that is don't waste time you don't have time to waste. And it's just the perfect way to build up that urgency again, to get going and get moving with something that I need to do or need to focus on. And even if you've never used that mantra before for yourself, I am guessing that since you're here watching a 15-minute video on YouTube, rather than paying for leadership courses at your local university or even community college, that you probably subscribe to a similar thought process. And I'm not saying that you're wasting your time on podcasts or even YouTube videos, but you might be wasting the majority of what you're learning during that time. So if you're anything like me, you have curated this perfect playlist and all of the topics and tactics that you want to learn and that you want to be an expert in. So maybe there's something like leadership or communication or mindset. And personally, I'm a podcast junkie, all right? I love that I can learn and develop in all of those tiny pockets of time throughout my day. That's part of why I don't want to waste any time because I know that each moment can be so valuable and action packed with these clips that I can use. I can do laundry while I'm learning the difference between my authentic self and my performer self. I can walk my dog while I'm learning about personal finance or long term investment strategies, right? There's just so much value in what a podcast or a YouTube video can do for you. YouTube, actually, especially, because you can search up the exact video that you want to learn about and have the precise strategy or tactic that you need in that very moment. And it is a beautiful thing. However, most people will only get about 10% of what they've learned. And if they're really lucky, they could maybe get 20, which means that even though you're intentionally curating the perfect stream of knowledge to enter into every pocket that you can during the day, you're only walking away with a tiny fraction of what you set out to learn. And the reason for that is simple, right? You are learning passively. Passive learning, even if you've never heard that term before, you have experienced it because it's the traditional way that of learning that we all remember, right? We have all had the teacher standing in front of the room, the professor standing in front of the lecture hall that talks at you about what you should know or what they think that you should have experienced by now. And yes, that instructor, that teacher, that professor, that expert on the internet is smart and experienced. And they're focused on the one right way of thinking and telling you why you should do what they say. You did this in college with lectures, right? But you also did it with assigned readings. Your professor told you which author had the right thing to say. And then you went out and you bought the book or you borrowed the book, and you would have the author talk to you through their pages, just reinforcing that exact same one right way. And I'm not dogging on learning from the experts. Hello, that is what I'm here today doing. But these professors and these authors, they have valuable insights that we want to access. We want to access it to avoid mistakes. We want to access it to speed up wins. And it's amazing that in this day and age, we have that kind of access at our fingertips. But let me ask you a question. How much do you actually remember from that English lit class that you took? How many takeaways actually stuck with you from then? Now, you might be rolling your eyes and thinking, that's because they made me take it. I had to go through 5 years of school and so much of it didn't actually apply. Okay, fair, fair. But what about the last book you read? Maybe you've read this book, right? Simon Sinek's Start With Why. It is a fantastic book. There is probably a takeaway on every single page of this. How many of them stuck with you? If we go through and see the highlights on all of these pages, how many do you actually remember? Did you even get the 10 to 20%? Now, we know it's valuable, but we're still not getting what we need out of it. And there's a very good reason for that. It's because it doesn't apply to us. Or, said another way, we're not applying it to our lives and our circumstances. So if the information is good, but the results aren't there, we don't need more content. You don't need a longer, more perfect playlist. You need to change how you're using it. And there are two ways to take that 10% retention up to something closer to 70% or even 80% retention. So I am going to give you two strategies that you can put in place right now with this very video to take it from 10% to 70%. The first one is this. I want you to consider your own examples. When you are listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video, you're hearing the examples that they share. You're hearing the stories that they tell. Even as you sit here with me, you're listening to my stories. When I talk about English Lit, when I, am listening to these podcasts while I'm walking my dog, I want you to consider your own because you might see yourself in our stories, but you don't have the full context because that story isn't yours. So instead of centering me and my experiences in what you learn about leadership, I want you to center yourself. Visualize the circumstances that you went through, or even the end result that you want. Because when you do that, it filters into what's called your RAS. Your RAS is your reticular activating system, and it's kind of like your brain's algorithm or even your brain's filter, right? It selectively pulls in and sifts out the things that you want to pay attention to and the things that you don't need to pay attention to. You tell it what is important. So, for example, if you hear me say something like, holding your team's hand is holding you back. And if you've been around a minute, you know that that is something that we talk about frequently. Holding your team's hand is holding you back. And then I might give you a story about how my Zoom mute button being stuck literally transformed the confidence that my team had because I physically could not chime in on their discussion. It forced them to make decisions. It forced them to actually be empowered without getting permission from me on what to do next. And it ended up giving me 6 hours back a week because I realized that I didn't need to be in all of those meetings. I was acting as a crutch to people who could walk just fine and would probably run if I wasn't there. So don't just remember my story about the Zoom button. Start looking for your own. Where are your own Zoom button moments, right? Tell your brain, I'm not holding myself back anymore. And now it starts filtering in opportunities for you to step out and let go of their hands. Now, that might be hard to do without a prompt. And I know, again, hello, passive learning pitfall, right? Because you don't have those in the moment to literally pause the video that you're watching and think to yourself, what do I want to put into my RAS? What applies for me? Because whether you're opening a map or you're just setting the destination in your GPS, you still need to know where you are right now. You have to know your actual location in order to get where it is that you want to go. You might have heard the right theory spouted at you, but truly considering what it is that you do on a regular basis, that is going to be the unlock. And that is what the leadership audit allows you to do so that you can take that next right step in leadership. You can follow that map or follow that navigation system exactly where you want to go because you know where you're starting. Now, if you want to figure out exactly where your starting point is, then I would encourage you to click the link below and get access into the leadership audit for yourself. Again, we don't have a lot of time to waste here, right? So it is going to be done in less than 10 minutes, and it's going to show you exactly where you're holding yourself back and what the next step is to take you to the destination of your leadership that you want. Now, number 2 is where I admittedly am going to lose a few people. It is one thing to encourage you to passively learn in all of those pockets of time. It is another thing to encourage you to muse and think about how it could apply and does apply in your real life. But this next one, number two, is actually asking you to take action. Now, you need to create opportunities to apply what you're learning. And I know that is going to take some effort, right? That is going to take you stepping out of your comfort zone and putting time into those actions. But that is where you get that 70 to 80% of learning is by putting what you've learned, what you've heard, and what really caught your attention into practice. Because when you hear that one aha moment in a podcast or a video and put it into practice, that is where the magic starts. Because what you're getting from a podcast and videos is what's called convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is what the experts are doing when we compile all of the best information for you. It's why you get that perfectly curated list, right? So we want that. We want convergent thinking. We've looked at all the possible ways to do something, and we've decided based on our experience and our understanding of the theories on what the best option would be for you. And again, that's not a bad thing. That is what we want. That's how we want to be able to move forward, avoid those pitfalls, and get the speed to winning. So let's take another example of what you've probably heard if you've been around a few minutes. And that is communication is your key to unlocking freedom in your leadership. And I've done the work to distill that down for you, right? So I have told you different ways to communicate in order to give yourself freedom. Things like articulating why your team would want to make the change that you've requested. If you, again, start with why, it is going to make that transition so much easier. People are going to want to follow you in the process. They're going to want to achieve the result that you set out for them because you've told them why it matters. All of that is true. That is the convergent thinking. So when you apply it, you test it. You're no longer a passive learner, just accepting that what I have shared, that telling people why they should do something is critical. That's one level, right? That's 10%. That's barely getting anything out of what you learned, just hearing that, nodding along and agreeing that it's true. But when you take this active role in it, you get to be a psychologist right alongside of me because you're testing, right? You're testing what level of enthusiasm is going to work for your team and the specific project that you're working on. Do they respond better if it's a group win, or do they want their personal achievements acknowledged? And what actually motivates this person, this one specific teammate that you have been struggling with for so long, in this specific moment where it matters the most to you? It's that individualization to you and to your team and to your circumstances is what allows you to actually get the most out of what you're learning, which again is exactly why that leadership audit is so instrumental, because it helps you pull back the covers on your own leadership. What's working? What's not working? What's maybe getting results but taking you 60 hours a week to achieve? It helps you break it all down. So yeah, I am still going to be a podcast junkie. I'm going to keep learning while I'm folding my laundry and walking the dog and driving to work, because that is the kind of access to ideas that is powerful. Books, podcasts, YouTube, they are all incredible. But let's call them what they are. They're a map. They show you what's possible. They show you the paths, the roads that have worked. Some of them are gravel roads that you maybe could test a bit more, and some of them are superhighways. They give you the direction, the north, south, east, and west that you need to be able to make things work. But a map doesn't see where you are right now. A map doesn't know you just took a wrong turn. It doesn't adjust when your team responds a little bit differently than expected. It doesn't tell you when you're technically right, but completely ineffective in that moment. It's the difference between passive learning and applied growth. Passive learning gives you the route, right? It's like when you printed off MapQuest back in the day. Working with someone who can see your patterns and hear how you're communicating, and then challenge you in how you're applying it, that's the actual navigation system. It recalculates, it adjusts in real time, it gets you back on track faster. And whether you're using the map or you're turning on the GPS, your first step is the same. You have to know where you are. And that is what the leadership audit gives you. Because the goal isn't just to know more, it's not to just collect knowledge, right? The goal is to lead better, to have more effective relationships, and to get better outcomes. Or maybe for you, it's to get your time back. Maybe it's to stop reworking these already finished projects. It's to have a team that can run without you. So keep listening, keep watching, keep learning. Just don't confuse exposure with execution. So, right now, I want you to get that leadership audit so that you can fully understand exactly where you are and then apply these two strategies. Turn off YouTube and get out there and try them. Put them in place so that you can see what you have actually learned all along the way. All right, I will see you in the next.